Let's be honest. Compost piles take too much out of us. Turning them, waiting months, fighting with smell, heat and pests. It's a burden that many gardeners eventually give up on. For years I thought a compost pile was the only way to make black, rich soil. But then I discovered a method that not only saves time but actually feeds the soil faster, keeps nutrients where they belong, and requires almost no heavy labour. It's called in-place soil composting, and once you understand how it works, the old compost pile will feel like a thing of the past. Why the compost pile holds you back? Traditional piles look impressive, but they separate nutrients from the soil. Microbes and worms work hard in that pile, yet all of the energy happens away from your beds. You then have to haul the finished compost back, which means lifting, carrying and spreading. By the time it breaks down, you've lost moisture, some nitrogen has evaporated, and sometimes it moulds before it's ready. In hot climates, piles dry out too fast. In cooler zones, they stall and sit half-finished. For many gardeners, it becomes more of a chore than a benefit. So, how does in-place soil composting flip the system, you ask? Instead of moving organic matter around, in-place composting puts everything directly into the soil, exactly where plants and microbes need it. You don't have to wait 6 months for the pile to mature. You feed the ground immediately, right then and there. The method is really quite simple. Organic material goes straight into the bed, either buried in shallow trenches layered under mulch or mixed lightly with soil. Decomposition happens right there, in partnership with worms and fungi, all working together. Nothing is lost, nothing is hauled, and your soil structure improves season after season. It's a straightforward way to give back to your garden year after year. For example, instead of just tossing your kitchen scraps onto a pile, you might want to try digging a trench about 6 inches deep between your rows of crops. Drop the scraps in there, then cover them up with about 3 inches of soil. Within, say, 2 to 3 weeks, you'll notice earthworms swarming that trench, and by the next planting cycle, that strip will be soft, dark, and absolutely packed with nutrients. So, the science behind why this works faster is actually quite interesting. When you compost directly in the soil life doesn't have to wait around. Fungi send out their hyphae right into the fresh material, breaking down those tough fibres like lignin and cellulose. At the same time, bacteria get to work straight away, mineralizing nitrogen and releasing carbon dioxide, which, the nearby plants can use for photosynthesis. Worms really do their bit by chewing through all that soft matter, coating it in castings that are just loaded with humic substances. And, because the material stays nice and moist underground, decomposition doesn't stall out like it sometimes does in a dry pile. You're essentially running a living compost factory right under your plant's roots. One example is burying 1 pound of kitchen scraps per square foot of trench space. Mixed with an equal volume of dry carbon like shredded leaves or brown cardboard, the balance prevents odour and, speeds decomposition. Within a month, the original scraps are unrecognisable humus. So here's how you can apply this method in a raised bed or garden row. First off, just start with what you already have at hand. In a raised bed, after you've pulled out an old crop, lay down a layer about 2 inches thick of chopped garden waste, spent plants or even kitchen scraps. Then add an equal amount of shredded paper, dried leaves or straw right on top. After that, cover everything with another 2 inches of garden soil. Now just water it lightly to keep it moist. By the time you're ready to plant again, that buried layer will have transformed into a soft black foundation. For open garden rows, what you'll want to do is dig a trench about a spade's depth. Fill it with alternating layers of green waste and carbon material, keeping the ratio at about 2 to 1. Then simply backfill with soil. You can rotate the trench location each season, and over time, you'll slowly build fertile bands right across your garden. This keeps weeds down, improves tilth, and steadily builds organic matter without a single trip to turn a pile. What makes this different from sheet mulching? Some might say this sounds like mulching, but there is a key difference. Mulching sits on top and slowly weathers into the soil. In-place composting is buried, which keeps the breakdown process active and prevents nutrients from leaching away or drying out. Mulching still has its role for weed control and moisture retention, but when your goal is to feed soil quickly, burying organic matter is the faster track. Now, let's talk about some real examples of success from gardeners just like you and me. Gardeners who once struggled with heavy clay soil have reported, noticeable changes after just a single season. For instance, one gardener buried alternating layers of banana peels and shredded newspaper at about 4 inches deep in that tough clay. And by spring, that trench was loose enough to simply push a hand right through. Here's another example, this time with tomatoes. One gardener mixed half a bucket of chopped weeds with half a bucket of dry corn husks, then buried the mix under a tomato row. Within weeks, the tomato roots reached that composting strip and honestly produced double the growth compared to the untreated row. So, why does this method really future-proof your garden? Well, compost piles, they depend on constant labour, don't they? But in-place composting, it builds a soil system that practically runs itself. Every time you add material, you're actually creating a permanent underground pantry of organic matter. And the more you repeat it, the richer your soil becomes, until you're no longer battling compaction, weak growth, or poor fertility. This method also helps with drought resilience, because decomposed organic matter holds water like a sponge. In short, you're not just feeding this season's plants, you're investing in the soil's long-term health. For gardeners serious about saving time and building soil health, the compost pile is outdated. In-place soil composting delivers faster results, healthier beds, and stronger crops without the back-breaking labour. If you're tired of turning, waiting and hauling, try burying those scraps right in your garden and see the transformation for yourself. Don't let the old pile steal your energy any longer. This method changed everything in my garden, and it can do the same for yours. If you found this guide useful, make sure to subscribe to Hydro Haven and share this with fellow gardeners who are ready to ditch the pile and grow the soil directly.